Serious, when did COVID-19 get real for you? When in the space of an hour, the NBA got cancelled, Trump banned all travel to and from Europe, Tom Hanks announced he had it, that made me go, oh. Pretty sure that was the Friday before the stock market completely tanked. Could be wrong though, the days are blurring together. I spent all weekend watching the news and realized this is going to be a months-long thing. Last Monday, when a co-worker was diagnosed with it, I work at UPS which is deemed essential. The last couple of weeks have rivaled peak season in the amount of work each day. A lot of older people work there as it's part-time and free health coverage. We have no PPE, none. I haven't seen any type of disinfectant in any of the areas. Management seems fine with it, and was offended that I asked what was their plan of action weeks ago, prior to Mrs. A's diagnosis. My grandmother called me and asked if I could mail them toilet paper. My grandfather has S4 pancreatic cancer. They can't find supplies. It got real right at that moment. About a month or so ago when my hospital converted a ward into a negative pressure unit in anticipation of our first patient from one of the cruise ships. We're still changing related procedures and protocols almost daily and prepping other wards to accept patients with pending tests. When I was on Nextdoor and saw that people are posting which grocery stores have food, I wasn't blind to anything. I was taking it seriously and all. But that was the moment where I realized, holy crap, we are currently in a world where people have to post which grocery stores have food. Yup, and it happened so quickly. When I realized that if my mother, who is 70 but generally healthy, falls ill, I can't get to her because that would involve air travel. Even if you are near you can't get to her. My mother was just admitted to the hospital, not for COVID reasons. I can't visit her. When we were pulled in by management and told that all non-essential research was stopped, b. COVID-19 research would be started in the next 2 weeks and c. asked to fill out a form detailing our full range of expertise for potential redeployment. It was quite a stark wake-up call 2 weeks ago. When my boss told me that I will be working from home for 8-12 weeks. My cousin got sick, was admitted to the ICU, and tested positive for it. He's been out of the hospital for a few days but hasn't really improved. He just hasn't gotten worse. I texted with him a bit and it's still really serious. He has asthma as well. I guess it was only a matter of time before it affected somebody I know. As a fellow asthmatic, I wish your cousin all the best. Knowing how crap just the flu can be for me, I can't imagine how detrimental COVID is on the lungs. I wish him the best recovery possible. When I went grocery shopping for the first time in several days last week, and many of the shelves were completely empty. Same here. That was about 10 days ago for me. I got home and checked confirmed cases in my state, Pennsylvania, and there were around 20. Then next day it was in the 40s, then the 60s. Today has been a week since we had around 67 cases statewide. We have 650 now, so shoot's getting realer every day. Today, when the government announced they're going to start putting the dead in a skating rink inside a local shopping mall because the local funeral homes don't have any more capacity. When colleges and K-12 schools closed, that's not a light decision and the people making those calls are very educated. I immediately knew things were about to hit the fan. Our country still hasn't done it. I understand the reasoning but it's hard to watch. My husband has type 1 diabetes and is working from home, so we kept the little plague carriers with us. When my colleague died, she was the first COVID-19 death in our state. I had seen her a few weeks ago and she was doing great, and then I received a company-wide email that she had passed. I have worked in investigations security for 8 years and was always told we can never work from home. Reason being we have access to millions of individuals' sensitive data and they didn't want to risk it being stolen. 2 weeks ago they bought hundreds of laptops and sent us all home to work. This is mine. I work for a payroll company, one of the largest. They just sent 4,000 employees home. We were asking for it, demanding it actually, and then they did. I woke up the next morning and looked at my sleeping kids whose school is cancelled for the rest of the year and just felt panic sit in. I'm thankful I have a job, but god dang am I scared. When I realized I should not be able to go home and see my elderly parents, one of which recently got diagnosed with cancer. My girlfriend is a wildlife virologist. When she started constantly reading articles during her free time, maybe mid-February or so, I realized it was the real deal. When cases popped up a few miles from my elderly, immune-compromised father's home, I started being truly scared for him and others. When the whole country of Italy was put on lockdown, that should have been a wake-up call for the world to take it deadly serious. Even for countries where it has become a problem and is trending towards what Italy is experiencing, it's not being taken nearly as seriously as it should. People seem totally unable to really empathize with things that seem to be happening far away. Honestly, when the death toll in China surpassed SARS, I'm kind of an anxious person anyway, but infectious diseases have always scared me because there's no real control over who lives and dies. Other than my sister, my immediate family acted like I was crazy and overreacting. When I told my friend that I had been buying a little extra each grocery trip, she thought I was being ridiculous. She's a nurse and recently told me how real it is to her now. My family members thought I was nuts when I was talking about this over a month ago. I wish they had been right about it being no big deal, nothing to worry about. My first shift at the hospital after 9 days off and seeing how absolutely unprepared we were to deal with what's coming. For example, 2 nurses were allowed to come back to work after flying home from a cruise in early March. They pulled both of them and sent them into quarantine, but not until they received a call from the cruise line that 2 passengers so far had tested positive. There was at least 2 people on our unit who were like 99% confirmed. They just hadn't been tested because neither met the criteria for testing in this state, having left the country recently or directly knowing someone who had. And now I'm in the middle of another 9-day stretch off, having had what feel like a chest cold for going on 3 or 4 days now. Knowing I need to check in for a virtual health consultant, wondering if they'll be footing the bill if I'm told to take 2 weeks off. It's been real for me since hearing about Italy locking down, because I've been in shortage situations before, namely Hurricane Katrina, but it got really real when I found out the guy across from me tested positive, and I was on the elevator with him last Monday, so that kinda blows. He's fine, thankfully, just in self-quarantine. But now with the pollen coming out and all, every little sniffle and scratch I feel in my throat has me convinced I'm getting the dang thing. My dad has it, I just found out today. I'm 1,700 kilometers away and I'm afraid I'm never going to see him again. Sending all the love I have. Please stay strong. Just heard that the company that sews MLB uniforms is bringing back their workers to start making surgical gowns. This is starting to sound like the factory conversions to war production during World War II. These are war times, it's just not other people we're at war with. We own a small business. 3 days ago the government ordered us to shut down. We had to let go all of our employees, including 3 senior citizens who depended on their checks for their livelihood. We have some savings but not nearly enough to continue to live and maintain the business afloat. The state is not offering enough help for us. We are really in a tough situation. Our employees are also in the same boat. We have a 30-year-old employee who has nobody. She lives by herself and most likely will get evicted, as her landlord is in butthole. Her situation is desperate. This is so sad and so crazy. All of our hard work is going down the drain in 3 weeks. When I found out both me and my husband are likely to get activated, National Guard, and we will have to send our 4-year-old daughter across the country to stay with family. Update. My husband went to in processing this morning at his unit. He explained the circumstances. His contract ends next month, but they still planned on having him in process. Which, hey, whatever. If they need us, they need us. Our daughter had a fever last week, which they also knew about. She's fine now, but once my husband got there they decided it was too much of a risk to use him in the off chance it was the coronavirus. It kinda sucks he drove out of state to his unit to immediately get sent home, but it's also a huge weight lifted from our shoulders for now. Send her now, before it gets really, really bad. French here. My mother works at the hospital, and until 2 weeks ago, she only thought of it as a big case of flu. I was kinda worrying. I ride the train and the sub each day to go to work, but she was really reassuring. I was worrying because it is my first adult pandemic. I was only 16 when H1N1 happened. Then, Wednesday of the week before, she called me. In her hospital, 3 wings had been closed to leave beds vacant in order to anticipate the sick people. 2 of her colleagues had it, including her direct chef. All of the vacations she had taken for April were deleted and was requisitioned to work. She told me to take the train, work from home, and stay away from people. That if I ever catch it, it could be possible that the hospital wouldn't have enough place, and that they can't have masks. When the president called for the confinement, be sure I respected it with absolutely no condition. I know I will be safe, I have enough food and TP at home, and I have plenty of things to do. Work, read, play. But my parents, they have been both heavy smokers for 40+ years. Mom is 60, dad is 59, and my mom is in the first lines. I am not ready for this. Best wishes to all of you. I work in a boarding school with a lot of international students. It got real around when Madrid announced they were closing the airports. There was a panic packing where we shoved everything the Spanish kids owned into suitcases and put them on the last flight back home. And then it happened again with the Danish kids. Then Kazakhstan, Ukraine, Germany, France. When the school officially got closed on Friday, we had 25 out of our 145 students and 12 of our 55 staff members left in the building. As of today, the UK is in lockdown, so now it's really real. When the Chinese government was snatching people off the streets who refused to self-isolate while they were sick, that was real enough to me to know this was serious. For me, 2 things. 1, when they put Wuhan under lockdown. 2nd, when they reported the teenage girl in Washington with it, and that they only knew because they did an end run around the CDC to test her. I heard from it the first time when people started dying in China. Paid more attention when people started dying closer to home. Got real when Europe went full lockdown mode. Went to steroids when I lost my job. I'm so sorry this happened. When my company actually started making plans to work from home, we had been staunchly against it forever, usually requiring a disability and lots of approvals from the higher ups to have a chance. I remember when they had us start filling out the approval forms just for record keeping purposes, and they said don't complete the last 2 pages. Everything is auto approved so we don't need admin signatures. For me, it was when they required WFH. I'm a software engineer, and we had a pretty flexible WFH policy. But when the email came through that said we're closing the office at 3 PM, GTFO, oh, and your badges won't work anymore either, then it was pretty real. When my otherwise perfectly healthy 31-year-old husband collapsed from lack of oxygen walking up a flight of stairs. He was feeling slightly short of breath and very tired, so we decided to go to bed. He walked up the stairs and was standing in the bathroom and then collapsed from shortness of breath. We live in Canada, so it's a no-brainer to go to the hospital to get checked out. They checked to make sure he didn't have a lung clot or anything else funky going on by some tests, gave him fluids through an IV, and then said he has a virus. They did not test him for COVID because they are saving the tests for the super bad cases or in order to try and track where the virus came from, which we wouldn't have been able to help with since we'd been in contact with a decent amount of people through work. Since we hadn't been in touch with someone who was traveling, they said they weren't going to test. Since then, community transmissions where we are have ramped up, so I'm not sure if they're sticking to the same policy. I obviously can't say for sure it's COVID without a test, but it follows line by line of what other people are reporting the virus follows, and I hope to God there's not a second virus out there doing the same things, otherwise we're truly fricked. It's unlike anything I've ever seen and he's ever experienced. He was barely able to talk from shortness of breath that night. Since getting home we made sure he did basically nothing, and kept his fluids up, and the symptoms have all been manageable. Even an increased heart rate from an intense TV show caused him to get dizzy in the first few days. He's been improving but very slowly. Just rest, keep your fluids up, and take this seriously. Wednesday, March the 11th. I'm a teacher, and that was the first day that we had a meeting about the extremely unlikely odds that we would miss school. By Thursday, we knew that we would be out, but we figured that it would be the week after spring break. On Friday, we knew that we weren't coming back for at least 3 weeks. Now, I doubt we go back until next year. The 11th of March was a weird day for me since it was the final normal day I had plans for before coronavirus concerns really got to my city. Like I knew something was wrong but I didn't know what exactly. I lost my job, had to move back home from another country, and I am not able to see my friends or my family. Trying to work out a 3-month plan that isn't moving hotel rooms for 90 days and burning my savings. Mild compared to awful experience others have had, but it's a million miles away from where I thought life was going 10 days ago. I was 10 months into a 24-month visa and I lost my job and had to book a ticket home ASAP. I'm currently sitting in the airport in Dubai hoping my connecting flight takes off. When my dad told me, I won't stop you from leaving the house, but just remember the choices that each of us make are going to affect our entire family from now on. As bored as I am in social isolation, I just can't risk my family's health. Your dad is right and I'm glad you understand. It's hard to be told not to do something, even if it's just go outside. I was taking it pretty serious, but I'd say it kicked into super high gear when all sports got cancelled in like 4 days. Since then every day the rules of life change. Yeah, the NBA was a big one. Real big. When my thesis defense was forced to be live streamed from my apartment in just a single day's notice. Luckily the connection was great, the audience was small, and I was able to not wear pants. Oh, also, luckily I passed it to Mayo. Congratulations. I laid awake last night unable to sleep because I realized my brother, his girlfriend, or I could be carrying the virus. We're all home because courses have gone online and with parents. Both my parents are older and one is immunocompromised. If either of them got the virus, it could kill them. When my mum, sister, and dad all got laid off work, the only person in the house who's still working is my 14-year-old brother who does paper rounds. This sounds really tough. Thoughts are with you, friend. My aunt is one of the 100 people that have died in the last 24 hours in the US. She was like a mother to me growing up and I feel like my childhood just died with her. This is the first death in my life that has me confronting the realities of losing someone close to you. I was planning on going to visit her not too long ago, but the developing concerns over COVID kept me from doing so because she was already very sick. My cautious nature was to no avail because it still killed her. I could have seen her, but I didn't because I was concerned about something that happened anyways. This morning it got very, very real for me. What happened to my aunt is an example of what happens when you do not take COVID seriously. It is everyone's responsibility to do the best that they can to minimize the spread and contact with those that are vulnerable. You might be fine if you get COVID, but others are not. You can unintentionally contribute to the death of your loved ones or others by not being cautious. I know that many of us have to continue going to work or leaving for various reasons. If that's the case, the best thing you can do is keep yourself away from as many people as possible. I know social distancing can really suck, especially if you're an extrovert, but being 100% comfortable is not worth risking the lives of many. Who knows? Maybe my aunt was passed along the virus because someone thought I'm young and healthy. It can't hurt me. Stay safe, everyone. Most of all, stay strong. If there was ever a time for us to put aside our differences to band together and make sacrifices as a species, this is it right here. If you'd been exposed, you could be passing the virus and not know it. Your staying put may be what saves someone else's mother or aunt. It may be scant comfort, but it is true. Hugs. USA. My girlfriend's boss died of it right after she got a new job. Fortunately, she did not come in contact with him as we were both out of town during the 14-day contagion period. He was a great guy, and of her 3 bosses, he was the only one she liked a lot. It was a real sad day and a grim reminder that this is happening. When Peace Corps evacuated all 7,300 of its volunteers from every corner of the world and I had to flee a remote site in under 3 days while there was ongoing violence in the streets of my hub site. Since I'd only been out there for 7 weeks and hadn't reached swearing yet, I do not qualify for the normal readjustment allowance that senior volunteers are entitled to. I quit my job, sold my car, and had a relationship implode over this. He cheated on me because of the distance, but also because he was a sack of crap. I'm coming home to an unsupportive family and a country that is extremely different from the one I left in January, and I'm very scared. Thank you for what you've done. Though I'm sorry to hear the crap you're going through. Chin up a D-head on a swivel. Well, pull through. This is kind of dumb in comparison to some of the others, but when the Houston Rodeo closed down, it is such a big deal, and the fact that it closed was my crap's about to go down moment. When I was out shopping and I saw a guy at the grocery store in a full hazmat suit, gloves, and mask, just buying crap in that outfit like it was normal. When I got an email from my job that someone in the building tested positively for COVID-19 and we'd all have to quarantine. Either that or when I went to the grocery store for the first time after things started shutting down and there were basically no essential foods left. But hey, at least I own a lot of chicken nuggets now. Today, when I got laid off and they hinted that the financial impact of the state shutdown is such that they may not be able to rehire me when things get better. When hospitals were filled to capacity in the Lombardy region of Italy, this obliterated any argument that it was just a normal flu. When my son, who is a paramedic in the emergency room at a regional hospital, got exposed to it by 2 different patients. For my protection, I'm an overweight ex-smoker, so I'm probably more susceptible. We can't meet up for dinners and things. I feel selfish for not being there for him, but want to prevent the spread. So we just text and call instead. It may seem selfish to you to do this, but in reality you're actually thinking of others by helping reduce the spread. I currently room with a paramedic myself and I worry for him, and frankly myself too. Hope you or your son don't catch anything. Keep doing what you're doing. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.